All right, we got Nick and Gene. So. We're at 7, right? We and I think we have a quorum on the FinCom side, so we can call the FinCom meeting to order. Chuck, do you? I see Carla and John.
So we don't. Tom is not attending, so we need Sean or Aaron.
Perfect. Okay. I'll keep an eye out. I'll keep an eye out, and I don't see. I think it's just Carlo from.
Hey guys.
Hey Andrew. Thanks for joining. So we're at full staff for FinCom. So we're ready to kick off. Thanks everyone for carving out some time on St. Paddy's Day. I was told explicitly by everyone at my dinner table that I'm not allowed to do any type of Irish accent at all. I may slip at some point. I don't know. I test drove a couple lines and they went over like a lead balloon. So that won't be happening. But I don't want anyone to refrain from doing it on their own. If you just happen to break out into one, I don't judge. I'm all for it.
And if you need my hat to be lit, just let me know.
Exactly, we might have to do that. It's a good accompaniment to it. Exactly, this is perfect. I'm just checking real quick. Yeah, so no other committee has a quorum. So I think we're good to kind of kick off. And again, I'll keep an eye on attendees if for either of you. Chuck or Mark. Cool. So we're, the agenda for tonight is, going over the warrant articles on the heels of the last several Wednesdays of review. I think everyone got the packet on, the full packet on Monday. And so, so I think at this point, Bob, we just kick it over to you to kind of get us started with that, or is there something? Is there something I was supposed to do? Yeah.
No,
oh, good.
Let me just remind you, if you haven't checked your emails, there wasn't a change today from the Voc School, literally just in last night.
Yep.
We could wait till November, but we know it today. So I'm going to ask you to increase the Voc School budget by $95,000 and increase the use of free cash by $95,000.
Yep.
I have all kinds of documents revised to reflect that, but it didn't really seem worth sending it all out to you again. So but there was that change. So traditionally, FinCom goes through the warrant in order, and the budget is probably last or next to last, if that's okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, starting, and as I go through the list, there might be one or two articles that are different from what we may have discussed in the past, and I'll update you as we get closer. But it starts with Article 4, amend the capital plan. I'll share my screen. I probably don't have to, but just maybe for folks at home. Can everyone see that okay?
We can.
Okay, this is the request, and I'll just go over the near-term requests in the general fund. There's no request for this year. We're going to fund something. It doesn't cost any money, but just to let everyone know, we're going to fund something out of facilities core surplus, mostly from energy, mostly from schools not being fully used during the winter. In FY22, and there'll be two separate articles related to these first two. There's the OPM and design work for the stadium, turf, and track, and for the Parker Middle School roof. I should probably capitalize that. Each of those is $250,000. There's $50,000 generically for downtown energy efficient projects. We're working with RMLD on putting in some charging stations. So this would be whatever RMLD/grants don't fund. We just want to have a little bit extra to use, as we can. And just to remind FinCom and everyone, there may be some preliminary work along these lines, but the downtown area, specifically Haven Street and down by the train tracks and in the area, will be dug up over the next couple of years as water main and some sewer and stormwater work are done. And when it's all done, it'll all be repaved. So in addition to the underground work, which is well underway, debt has been approved, there will be a outreach to the community whenever we can to talk about streetscape, because you don't want to pave a couple of years from now until you've had that discussion about, do we want more room for outdoor dining? Is parking sufficient? What kind of lighting do we need? Whatever. So just to sort of bundle all that together. We also used already facilities core surplus and bought a Bobcat. So there's no need for that in the capital plan. And with the proposed move of health to the police station, and you can see that's under the first article here, where we're seeing how much that will cost and what it'll take. We will not need a generator at town hall it was for the health division. So the police station already has a generator, so that need would go away. There are no changes in the water, sewer, enterprise funds. There is one change in the stormwater enterprise fund. We sold some debt a couple weeks ago. Instead of selling a 5-year for the stormwater, we sold a 10-year because rates were so low. So that gives us an extra $100,000 to add to a drainage project just for FY22. And DPW does have specific work they think they will do. Generically, 50 or 75,000 is usually in this line item. This would make it a higher figure. So I think it's 150,000 for the FY22 budget. So that's it with the capital plan. You've seen the capital plan before. To remind you, and I can certainly show it, it's a little bit higher than 5%. I think it's 5.3 or 5.4% in FY22. In FY23 and 24, it's also currently shown at about 5.5%. And that was the discussion FinCom had last fall. If things change or FinCom's appetite changes, we can't change debt we sold, but we can certainly pull back planned capital and bring those numbers back down to 5%. After this year. I mean, we could do it now for the summer if you wish, but we could certainly do it in the future. Again, if FinCom was more comfortable going down to 5% and not using quite as much free cash. So I don't know if there's any questions.
I don't see any questions, and I think discussion on FY22 and 23 as far as the 5.5% and et cetera. I don't think that's, from my opinion. I remain kind of comfortable with that from the discussions we had earlier. And welcome any kind of feedback from any of the other FinCom members.
Just to remind everyone, this doesn't fund capital. This just changes the capital plan.
Yep.
Ed, it's your choice, your preference as to voting article by article and then assigning a FinCom report, or you can vote at the end. It's whatever you're comfortable with. But you do need to do roll call votes.
Yep. I'm more of the mind to take them as they come, and that'll save us from while it's fresh, and do it that way. And so just on this one, Bob, on that last point, Bob. So we roll call the vote, and then. And remind me, because I forget from last year, did we assign them to FinCom members, or did we just roll it all up into the statement that I did for a town meeting?
you know, when it's an in-person meeting, usually FinCom members take turns.
Yep.
Well, last spring, that was the initial design, and then the chair just did all the reports when it was virtual.
Okay.
So honestly, if it's virtual again, it probably is easier for just the chair to do it.
Okay. Yep. That's fine. I mean, you know, the chair last year was kind of a glory hound and wanted to be able to do it all and stuff. I get it. We're under new management now, so we'll do it. We'll do it differently.
Blaze the trail for you, Ed. The spotlight is yours.
Perfect. No, that sounds good. So, given that so we're on Article 4, I'll entertain a motion for Article 4.
Motion to approve Article 4 as written.
Thanks, Dan.
Second. Oh, you beat me.
Thanks, Gene. All right, I'll we'll roll call it as I see you. Mary Ann,
You didn't say my
Mary Ann.
name. Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
did.
I was
Of course I
swapping.
did.
I was
As
swapping
was supposed to.
headphones because they were opposite. Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. That's 8-0. One down.
Thanks. Let me share the screen again. Article 5, and you have not seen this before. I don't think we gave you a preview a week ago because I don't think we had all the details worked out. I did say that be likely no free cash used, and that's true. But let me just go over the details, you know, since this is new. There's a $350,000 proposed decrease in benefit.
You aren't sharing yet, Bob, if you wanted to.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
That better?
It is now. Yep.
There's a proposed $350,000 decrease in benefits. That's a couple pieces. There's a $500,000 reduction in health insurance premiums. As I mentioned, we had a half a month credit this year in the summer/fall, so that's good news. And we're asking to move $150,000 out of the fire and police wage budgets into this. This happens maybe every 2 or 3 years. We have an officer or a firefighter injured on duty. They're unable to work. They're going through the retirement process. And several years ago, our town accountant said it's a much more accurate reflection on how to operate a department if we don't keep those wages in the department because the people are not working. So, you know, others are working overtime. Perhaps they've already been replaced in some cases by other staff. So it's just a transfer out of one department into this benefits area. For this year, we're asking to increase the vocational school budgets by $35,000. You know, the note you got earlier from me was another $100,000 for a different folk school, not either of these, just Northeast and Wakefield. So the Northeast and Wakefield number for this year was okay, but next year it's got quite a jump. It's quite a jump in enrollment. We're actually asking for another $10,000 to be moved into Mass Department Administrative Services for election workers and related costs like fire and police. You know, obviously we had an election that was not planned last fall and we need to cover those costs. Likewise, postage for the elections is $20,000. You'll recall that, you know, we did a lot of mailing to folks last year. There's also a guess at $45,000 for legal. That's just for general legal work. It's difficult to know because every month it can be quite different. This should do it, but if it doesn't do it, I'll be honest that this could be revised on the floor at town meeting, or it actually, we may have to come to town meeting at the end of to FinCom at the end of the year for a transfer. There's a lot of things going on in legal. Many of them are related to COVID, but not all of them. And it's just a difficult budget to predict this year. We have, unfortunately, a reduction on our benefits for veterans. There's, you know, just less veterans and less spouses. So we are able to cut 40,000 from that budget this year. Sharon has needed a little bit more overtime in accounting, so we're asking for a $3,000 increase there. Our appraiser, our assessor, Victor, now we used to do revaluations every 3 years. Now they're every 5 years, which is certainly a lot more affordable. And several cycles back, we got into the habit of asking a spring town meeting to fund this so that, you know, Victor and others can get a jump on the work now, you know, as soon as town meeting is done and not wait till July 1st. And there's a big advantage to that. So this will be two different outsourced vendors for $70,000. And again, it's every 5 years. You heard earlier from especially the fire chief. I think these numbers would be more than adequate. As some of you have been on FinCom for a while now, we like to build in a cushion after town meeting, or even after today, because we just don't know what events might happen. Surely there's something that hasn't happened yet that will. So there's been several retirements in both police and fire, and these are not the ones that are related to injuries. These are just traditional retirements. And the payouts for sick, unused vacation time, in some instances for employees that were on the job for many years, they get sick leave buyout. That's since disappeared. And then dispatcher overtime is running very high this year. As David mentioned, while he described the dispatcher budget, there's been some turnover, there's been some vacancies. More importantly, there's been a need for more staffing, and it's been a little harder to staff because of physical distancing. So that budget, you know, is already about $50,000 over, and that should tide it over for the year. And then your guess is as good as mine. I heard it's going to snow in a couple of days. So right now, a few days ago, the budget had a small surplus. I think I looked at it yesterday. It has a very small deficit as we bought some supplies. You know, this is another number that could easily change on the floor at town meeting, but for now, $50,000 more looks like it'll at least get us through the next storm. And the net of all that in the general fund is zero. We're moving $390,000 out of certain accounts, especially health insurance, and spending $390,000, so it's a wash. And there's no other transfers requested in any of the enterprise funds. So that's all I have.
Go ahead, Marianne.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Bob. I had a question on the legal budget. It just stuck in my mind because when I was looking at the select board packet for next week, right at the end, the last few pages is the current legal budget, and I see that if I'm comparing apples to apples here, and please correct me if I'm not. So I see that the current, like FY21, there's a budget of $280K, and based on the estimated run rate with the things going on, you're going to be estimating that you might be $17K short, and this is the overall. So I'm just wondering, am I looking at the right thing, number one, when I'm looking at this increase, and why are you projecting so much of an increase in legal for 22?
Well, this is to balance out 21, this 45,000. You're right, you looked at the right thing. However, there's only 3 months of legal bills in yet. The offices, they've been so busy, and it's so hard for them to work remotely that they're just behind on invoicing us. So because
okay.
I don't know necessarily what we've spent, I have a vague idea for the last few months, but not a precise one. So I think this transfer will cushion it.
Okay, so this is covering fiscal year 21 as well then? Okay.
This is only for FY21, correct?
So, all right, then this makes sense with I'm looking at right now.
Yep.
Now that I understand, you already were projecting like a shortfall of about a third of this. And then if we keep running this short. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, we can now entertain a motion on this. Article 5.
Move to accept Article 5 as written.
Thanks, Marianne.
Second,
Thanks, Dan. All right, go to the vote. Marianne,
Yes?
Mark?
Yes.
No, I see you guys. Okay, Jean,
Yes.
Dan,
yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Ed is yes. So that's oh, Nick, I forgot
Yeah.
Nick. I knew I forgot somebody.
Yeah. Nick is yes.
Thanks, Nick. Sorry about that. And Ed, yes, that's 8-0. Sorry about that.
Okay, as of right now, unless Sharon tells me otherwise, there are no prior year bills, so FinCom does not need to vote on Article 6. Article 7 is the OPEB contribution, and I'll go over that quickly. The OPEB liability is approximately right here, $1.5 to $2 million annually. We've planned several years back, we planned to fund it more fully once the pension fund was fully funded, which is now scheduled, actuarially, at least for 2029. Right now, the combined funding of pension and OPEB can be reduced by a couple $1 million when that shift happens. So that'll be a real windfall for the operating budgets, should it ever happen in 2029, many years away. We can easily fully fund OPEB at that point. We've also discussed strategies if we had to fully fund it sooner, and obviously that'd be very difficult to go from, $500,000, let's say, to, $2 million would be quite a jump. Last June, one of the cuts we made was the contribution just down to 100,000, almost a symbolic number instead of 0. And the budget this year has also proposed, I guess, a symbolic number of 100,000. So we're going to stick with that in the article and ask you to vote it, $100,000 in the general fund. And then there were some other amounts in the enterprise funds for a total of 192,000. I will say that I'm very confident that in future negotiations, probably next month in April with the PEC, which is a group of all the town, school, and light department unions, that we will be able to increase that 100,000, but I'm not in a position to say more than that tonight. So FinCom may well be asked to revisit this article in a good way, that we have an opportunity to add more to OPEB through negotiations.
And Bob, but that would be, so if that came to pass, would that be before? That wouldn't be. Would that be this article, or would that be a future one?
It would be this article, and it will probably have to show up on that other article about current year transfers.
Gotcha. Okay.
And everyone knows the target date of town meeting, so. What you see and what you're asked to vote on tonight will be what gets into print for town meeting. And then we'll just hope to do better.
Gotcha. Any questions? Not appearing. I'll take a motion for Article 7.
Move to approve Article 7 as written.
Thanks, Dan.
Second.
Thanks, Jean. To the vote, Marianne,
Yes?
Jean,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Ed is yes. 8-0.
Okay, thank you. We can skip Article 8. and jump on to Article 9, which is an annual inspection revolving fund article. There's a slight change this year. Town Council has recommended that the names of the projects be actually in the article. Previously, the names had been in the motion, but not in the article. Otherwise, this is identical to past years. In the background, not as part of the motion, and this is where the names used to appear, gives the spending of the name of the revolving account, the spending authority, the revenue source, what kind of expenses you can have, and the limits every year. And again, this change, it doesn't change very often. This 250 was bumped up through a request actually by FinCom a year or two ago from 200,000. I do want to call your attention to the public health clinic one. This could be a number that we want to change. Staff and the Board of Health are working on this. I don't think it would be a request made for this town meeting, but it could be in November. And it really depends on what types of clinics, the department decides to run. So I just want to bring that to your attention. No change for this year. Just a possibility of coming back in November. And there's been some language clarification for the library funds and fees. At some point, some of the language was just inadvertently dropped, but there's no real change. So the actual motion is really just to, approve these revolving funds annually, with the difference being that the inspection revolving fund is more specific.
And Bob, you were saying that the FinCom moved that inspection revolving fund from 200 to 250. Is that what you said?
I think so. That was a couple of years, maybe last year, but maybe 2 years ago. Just because of economic development opportunities that might come along during the year, and the balance of the fund is was around $1 million. It's around 800,000 now. So I think in the budget next year, I know we've spent under 200,000. I want to say it's about 190. So there's no immediate plans to spend 250, but just if an opportunity walked by, in theory, that gives us that authority.
Yep, that makes sense.
I also want to mention that the recreation revolving fund is not listed here. That's under separate state law, but these are the town's revolving funds except for Reading recreation.
And then
at the end, there's a list of current balances and a little bit more background for each of these.
go ahead, Marian.
Yeah, Bob, so on the inspection revolving fund, so we list projects that are already complete and then ones that are approved or ones that are proposed? Because my understanding looking at this list, 18 to 20 Woburn Street was just on CPDC, and I don't know about anything on 25 Haven, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the former Rite Aid right at the end.
Right.
So is there a project coming for that? Or are we just covering our base?
There is discussion, so I don't think it's come to CPDC yet, but this anticipates a project, yes.
So we can put any property listed here where we're anticipating a project?
Any significant commercial property, yes. If we don't list it and it happens, no big deal, but the funds then have to just flow through the general fund and could be added later. But the way projects happen is the significant funds or fees rather are usually upfront, a building permit, for instance. So this would allow it to flow in at any point during the next fiscal year. It would not flow in this fiscal year. It's not there yet. So you always have to kind of advance plan, if you will, even when, a project is thought to be and planned to be in the future. And, again, no real harm, but if you want those fees to, end up in this revolving fund and then be spent on economic development related things, you need to advance plan.
Okay, so in that vein, another project or a possible property I know that I think changed hands in that area, like in November or December, is the weird triangular one where Green Tomato and the laundromat are.
Right.
And I don't know what's going to happen. How come that's not included here?
We have had, or I'm not aware of us having any discussions with that property owner. They have no immediate plans. Where all of these listed there have been discussions. There
I
are
see.
rough plans.
Okay, I thought we would just like list anything
No.
that.
No, these are ones that they may or may not have come to an appointed board, but staff has definitely had significant discussions with developers.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Hey, Bob, a quick question on just on that. You mentioned the item around the health clinic revolving fund. Is that going to be more, kind of determined, based upon when the new, kind of health, kind of director is, put in place, or is that, will that have some more clarity at that point, or is it, or is it, as this is just kind of a placeholder, or what are your thoughts there?
The 25,000 has been a placeholder, if you will, for quite some time, but I just want to open up the possibility that a new health director, might have different thoughts. So
yeah,
it would be the new health director's call on this.
Gotcha. And would fall under this, this clinic, like if there's any kind of, kind of vaccination clinic, that would kind of fall underneath here, or is that something different?
I think, Ed, those so far are quote unquote free, covered by insurance. I don't believe those are flowing through this fund.
Okay.
If Jean is on and she knows differently, she can certainly answer it. But flu clinics, yes. COVID vaccinations, I don't believe so.
I can just jump in for a minute. So a lot of this is still in motion, and we're still trying to flesh out. The trickiest part of all of this related to the clinics is there's a tremendous lag in when we do get reimbursed. It can often be in more than 6 months. So as we furiously work on vaccinations and complete all the information, we don't always find out exactly when we will be seeing any of the proceeds from those clinics. And so it's really hard to say.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the other part of that is both FEMA and the CARES Act, in theory, are taking care of all these costs. What that means, who directly pays, as Jean says, it's still a work in progress.
Gotcha.
The COVID will go away, and the accountants and the lawyers will be busy for several years later. After that.
No, sounds good. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. I figured as much, but I just wanted to clarify. Any other questions, comments? None appearing. I'll entertain a motion for Article 9.
Motion to accept Article 9 as written.
Thanks, Andrew.
Second.
Thanks, Dan. All right, we'll go to the vote. Mary Ann. Mary Ann?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I
Sorry.
had unmute backwards.
That's all right. No worries. It could have been me. Dan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And Ed, yes. 8-0.
Thanks. The next article is also an annual one. This is it's kind of a Reading Unique Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Reading was early to create one of these. There was no enabling state legislation to adopt, so we had to do a home rule petition. There since has been enabling legislation. Reading could decide to change from this approach and adopt, ask town meeting to adopt a chapter of Mass General Law. And the real significant change would be, instead of the select board and the Reading Housing Authority meeting jointly to decide how to spend money or do anything else, there'd be an independent board of directors. So this is a little bit unique to Reading. We're still doing it in an old-fashioned way. But Reading has certainly done extremely well in the affordable housing area. I think we were 3 or 4% when I joined, and I know we're over 10% now, depending on how the census works. So that part of affordable housing Reading should be very proud of. But this affordable housing trust fund has a balance of $387,000. That's not going to build much affordable housing, should it need to. So at some point there's been discussions of how to attract revenue into this fund, and that's still an open question. But for now, there is $387,000. This is to approve a spending plan or a possible spending plan during the year. Up to 5% or $10,000 can be done for administrative costs, and the rest would be done for construction, or more likely to supplement construction, because you couldn't really do much with $380,000 in Reading. It's only been used sparingly in the past. Oak Tree down on Haven Street had asked for $200,000, and they'd asked for more, and they were granted $200,000 to increase the amount of affordable units. And other developers have discussed it, but none have actually gone as far as to requesting it. So again, this is an annual article. It just authorizes that combined meeting of the Select Board and the Reading Housing Authority to spend money according to these rules.
And then if we were to kind of to move, it wouldn't change any of the kind of balances, et cetera. It would just change the structure.
Yeah, I think the town meeting would adopt a different chapter of state law. I'm not sure what the financial ramifications are, but there would have to be a path to put this money in that vehicle somehow. And then a new board of directors would have to be created, and then they would plot both the spending and revenue plans for that fund. And this would disappear from town meeting and from your view, and the select board would not be directly involved anymore. Other than, of course, they may have representatives on a board of directors.
Right. Any questions for Bob on this one? If not, I'll entertain a motion on Article 10.
Move to approve Article 10 as written.
Thanks, Marianne.
Second.
Thanks, Dan. All right, go to the vote. Marianne,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed. Yes, that's 8-0.
Thank you. The next two articles are related. I'll give you a quick story, and our Victor's here from our assessing department to give you some details, or certainly answer any of your questions. This request would be and this request came sort of from a joint effort of Victor and Kevin Bowmiller, who is our community services director. Neither one of these would have a large impact on Reading today, but if it did have an impact in the future, it would be very meaningful for those that were affected. So the first is to allow disabled veterans that own property in a trust to be able to apply for tax relief. Right now, if they own property in a trust that's not a life estate, they cannot. I think we gave one example here where there was one example in the last several years where this could have happened, and the applicant chose to change the structure of the trust rather than missing out on the opportunity. So it's, one application or one inquiry over the last several years, gives you an idea of the magnitude. And Article 12, I'll just add in at the same time. This is for parents, Gold Star parents who have lost someone in their immediate family who died while serving in time of conflict. We're not aware of any Gold Star parents living in Reading today, and obviously we hope that never happens. But if FinCom has any questions, and Victor, if you want to add anything, please do.
I think adoption of both of these articles continue Reading support of local veterans, and again, would have, as Bob said, a meaningful impact to anyone that may avail themselves of these earned veterans benefits.
Victor, just a quick question. I mean, I know Bob mentioned the example, and it seemed like it got rectified because of what they did. Anything anecdotal where it could have come about, but they knew that there was the living trust kind of example, or is it just the one that we've gotten so far?
In the 9 years I've been in Reading, we've had one. The trust was structured basically in the wife's name, the wife of a veteran. And when he passed, his award was increased. But because he was not a trustee or beneficiary of the trust, but he did have clear interest by volition of his marriage. This widow of a veteran had to incur additional costs to change the trust to resume receiving his veteran's benefit.
Vic, have you seen this in Wakefield?
No.
Okay.
So one in my 25 years of doing this.
All right.
Well, in either case, for there's not many things that we shouldn't do for the veterans that we have out there, and so and I think that background is helpful, knowing how many veterans qualify for the disabled veterans exception already too. So again, thanks for that, Victor. Thanks, Bob. Go ahead, Marion.
I just have a question on Article 12 as written. We exempt it. First of all, I preface, I think this is a great idea. I just don't, why is it limited to parents and guardians, but not maybe the spouses or widows as well?
They're a different category of family. Gold Star parents or Gold Star mothers and fathers are clearly defined in other regulations as someone who has lost a son, a daughter, through military action. Spouses can continue to receive their spouse's benefit after the disabled veteran passed away, so they can continue to receive it. In some cases, if the cause of death is combat related, they can get bumped up and receive 100% tax benefit.
Oh, okay. So this is spouses or widows, however
different
it is.
categories.
They already have a benefit. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Marion. Any other questions for Bob and Victor? None appearing. I'll entertain a motion. We'll go. We'll take them just one at a time. Article 11.
Motion to approve Article 11 as written.
Thanks, Dan.
I'll second.
Thanks, Marianne. Okay, go to the vote. Marianne?
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes, 8-0 on Article 11. I'll entertain a motion for Article 12.
Move to approve Article 12 as written.
Thanks, Dan. A second.
Second.
Thanks, Jean. Go to the vote. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes, pass 8-0.
Okay, thanks. The next article is the high school stadium track and turf field. Recall that FinCom wanted to bump up the capital spending. Schools in town and facilities got together and made a prioritized list, with this one ranking first and the Parker Middle School ranking second. So those are the two that were, made affordable immediately through the capital plan. As I mentioned in a previous article, each of these will have a $250,000 capital request in FY22. The rough plan is for both to follow a similar construction schedule. We're asking for debt authorization this spring to retain maximum flexibility for that schedule. The $250,000 will be available July 1st. We'll hit the ground running with some design work. An RFP will go out sometime, certainly not, hopefully late fall, not early winter. That's usually the best time to bid construction work, such as, we experienced on Turf 2. We were a little later on that one. The idea is that one summer from now, so not this current summer, but design work will be done this summer, and then bids will go out late next fall. They'll be received in the winter, and we'll be able to line up this project and put it offline just for the summer. You'll hear a similar story for the Parker roof, but obviously construction in and around schools is far better to do between late June and late August. And that would be the plan here. The plan would be for, the stadium turf to be available for fall sports. I'm quite sure the athletic director and the schools will make contingency plans because construction timing is not always perfect. That's what happened for Turf 2. The pandemic was not the contingency plan that anyone had imagined, but it certainly has not received much use. Specifically, this will be a $3 million request in the motion. And specifically, the components of that cost are $1.9 million for the turf field and $1.1 million for the track replacement. And you can see a little bit of, breakdown further of that. Once the design process is done and then the bid process is done, we'll have a better idea of how accurate the $3 million is. But I've looked at some of the much more detailed specs, and there is a pretty good contingency built in. So the $3 million should not be a problem with, current construction prices. Just to add this in now, it's not relevant really for this article or for this discussion, but for those that were involved in the library project, for instance, there's something called add alts or add alternates. If the bid prices come in below what your budget is, you can then legally add in certain things. So for those that know, the Port Cochere, the front room, the glassed-in room, and the library was an add alt. It was not part of the original budget, but bids came in low enough, and that was a pretty big number. It was $400,000 or $500,000. That was able to be added to the project. So just as, initial thoughts, a scoreboard replacement and a sound system, could go into the bid documents. And that, again, will go through the design process. And there may be other things. So again, if you do come in lower than expected, you can add things that have been deemed, worth doing or important to do.
And do you get like a short list of that stuff, Bob, at that point in time, or is that something we decide?
The discussion is always, the library was a little different than this will be, but the discussion is, what are the things that are not part of the base bid that are important? What's the order of importance? Because that is legally very important. The first add alt you put in must be the first thing you add into the project. But then the other wild card, both in the library, but especially with athletics, is can you find any private funding to match some of these costs? So, could you ask the community to fund a sound system? Of course you could ask, who knows? So this will definitely be a work in process as to what things are added or potentially added. And there's also the possibility in many of our projects, we don't add anything. It's just if the bids come in lower, good for us, we save money. So that'll be a discussion that I'm sure will, happen in the fall, especially with the school committee where it's, under their control.
And again, that would be not this coming fall, the following fall.
It would be this coming fall as a discussion, because then the bid would go out late in the fall. So you'd want to make sure that everyone, had agreed on what the bid package should look like.
Gotcha. And so that would be part of the bid package is your adults. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
If there are any, there may be none, but just as an example.
And so if you don't, but if you don't identify them at the time, then you play. Do you have another bite at the apple, after the bids come in, or no?
No.
Okay.
That's why it's important to think about it in advance.
Yep. No, that's interesting.
So you may have, a $3 million authorization. You may have a project that comes in at 2.5. You can only spend the 2.5 if you haven't specified adults using this money and this approval process.
Gotcha. No, thanks for that background. That was it.
Yeah, and I'll go over Parker Middle School roof just because it's so similar. Pretty much the same time frame. $250,000 request in the FY22 budget. This is a $2.7 million debt authorization. It's a larger project than was in the previous capital plan. The whole roof needs to be replaced. Previous capital plans had replaced, I think it was 60% of the roof. Again, same time frame. I don't think there'll be any adults on this one, at least not that I can think of. But there may be a discussion of green energy. I don't know what the roof is like and what it can hold. But this is the time when you have those discussions, if at all. Again, this will target next summer, a year from now, for construction, and the school committee will see this also next fall, in terms of how they want to proceed and how they want to handle it. I did not mention explicitly, but want to say that in terms of the budget, each is $250,000 in capital next year in FY22, and the debt authorization being requested is not planned to be issued or funded until the FY23 budget. But it just works out much better if we receive debt authorization now, then we know that given these numbers, these projects can continue with those timeframes. With capital projects around schools, you just have to be real careful with the scheduling.
Any questions for Bob on this one?
Hey, Bob. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Sorry about that, Ed.
No worries.
In relation to this, the $25 a square foot based upon 100,000 square feet, what was the is there a tentative spec and plan associated with this? For the roof project.
I have, Andrew, I have preliminary price estimates, but that's what a design, an OPM and a design work would do.
Okay.
They would sort of fit that more tightly into exactly what do we want to do with this roof. So this is a guess, just if you replace the roof as is, I guess I'll say. $25 a square foot was a good price as of a month or so ago.
Do you know what the old roof was, Bob?
For cost,
No, material.
I really don't. Joe, if you're on the call, do you know?
Yeah, it's a rubber membrane roof.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
Andrew. Any other questions? Okay, not appearing. I'll entertain a motion for Article 13.
Move to approve Article 13 as written.
Thanks,
Second.
Dan. Thanks, Jane. On to the vote. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed. Yes, that's 8-0 on Article 13. Article 14.
Move to approve Article 14 as written.
Thanks, Dan.
A second.
Thanks, Mary Ann. On to the vote. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed. Yes, 8-0 for Article 14.
Okay, thanks. I'd just like to take a minute and thank FinCom. It's really been your, I guess I'll say, leadership that got, Turf 2 moved up, and now Turf 1, and the Parker roof. And to the extent we're fortunate and maybe clever enough to have a good free cash balance, I think these are great uses of that free cash as opposed to building operating budgets, that may not be sustained. So, thank you for that. I think that both these projects are very worthwhile. Article 15 is an annual article that may not technically be required anymore, but it's sort of tradition. We could scrap it someday, maybe. It's to accept whatever the state gives us in Chapter 90 funding. And the wording of the motion will be to accept whatever the state gives us, just in case the state number differs from what they're proposing. It's the number we've received from the governor preliminarily is just under 600,000. It's been around 600,000 for many, many years, with one exception when it was 900,000. So, we'll kind of see what happens, but 600,000 is helpful. And, many communities spend only this on their road repairs. I tip my hat to Reading that's always spent more, even though, again, it's a challenge. We've usually spent an additional $400,000 to $600,000 on local roads, not just used the state funding. And, given that we're a cut through and when we're near two major state highways, if we were only spending this money, the roads would be awful. So, it's a combination of state funding and local funding that makes that work. And just to be clear, our amount of roads and our proximity to the highways are factors in our Chapter 90 funding, although I'd say it's not nearly high enough.
And Bob, so that money, that kind of covers what the town does, but like say like 28, when they did that, would that been under this, or would that have been a kind of a different, because was there something about that that's a state
Yeah, Route 28,
Yep.
West Street before that, and some smaller projects were in addition to this 600,000. For some reason, I'm not remembering if Main Street was either 5 million or 7 million, but it was one of those two very large numbers. You know, and again, we couldn't possibly afford it even with our annual allocation, you know, plus it's a state road, we wouldn't be allowed to work on it. But West Street, you know, was a nice, I think I think that was through what's called the TIPS program. We were on the list for well more than 10 years. We're on the TIPS program list for some other things in town, and sometimes you just have to be patient. It's federal money that comes from the state with certain timing and expenditure requirements. So they don't get a lot of notice, and it's good to be on those lists. I do want to just call up the capital plan for a minute. If I could find it. Let me share this. I'll make it readable in a minute. This is the local money we spend on roads right down here. So there's $100,000 in sidewalk. Oh, sorry. 100,000 in sidewalk and curbing work. 100,000 in skim coating and crack sealing. We're still paying off our local share of West Street. And then next year we're asking for 400,000. So there's, you know, 600,000 total from Reading, and then here's the 600,000 estimate from the state, just to give you a full picture.
Gotcha.
The bigger projects just never show up here. This 400,000 for Lowell Street a year from now, we have asked the state if they would pay for it, so, you know, we'll wait and see.
Gotcha. Thanks, Bob. That's interesting. Any questions from anybody? None appearing. I'll entertain a motion on Article 15.
Move to approve Article 15 as written.
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Second,
Thanks, Dan. To the vote, Mary Ann,
Yes.
Dan,
yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. Pass 8-0.
Okay, I think that brings us to the budget. And just, I'll say it now, just so you know. Article 19, FinCom will not be asked to vote tonight. There is just no additional information on possible litigation and settlement thereof. If there is to be any action anticipated at town meeting, the select board will certainly call FinCom into an executive session and have a full discussion. But as of tonight, there is no need and no reason to have any information on this. So for the budget, I'm going to use the so-called spending scorecard just as a one-place reference. This is challenging only because of the way you need to vote it remotely. But just to remind FinCom, these are the lines that you are asked to vote on. These are the lines that town meeting will be asked to vote on. This is, you know, a summation, if you will, of all the prior discussions you've had. And again, the one change was this figure right here is $95,000 higher than it was, you know, 2 days ago. And the use of free cash was bumped up to pay for that. You can see it was quite a jump in vocational school education year over year. Although that 550 needs to go up by 30,000. So, you know, if you want to ask questions, I suggest we just go line by line and ask the questions. If FinCom wants to pause after every line and vote on it, you may, or you may just wait to the end, whatever is convenient for you.
And so, we have to vote every line item, right?
Well, if you put a few together, I don't think people would mind if you said lines B99, C99, D99, E99, F99 is presented, and then did a roll call vote. I think that would be fine. I just wouldn't want you to vote on the whole thing with a single vote.
Yep. So would we just break them out as how you've broken them out on this?
Yeah, I think you could broke them out to the shared costs, the town costs, and if you want to break out some of these separately, that's fine, the school department, and then the enterprise funds. You probably ought to do the enterprise funds separately.
Yep.
And again, if FinCom wants to suggest and approve any amendments up or down, we'll have to discuss, source of funds or use of funds. The default assumption would be free cash. FinCom nor I have any ability to change the revenues the town accountant has set. But if FinCom wanted to increase something by 100,000 and decrease something by 100,000, theoretically that's possible.
And I know we went through some of that as part of what we did last June, right, Bob? Because of, we bumped certain things up because of where we were with COVID, et cetera, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and if there's lines you'd prefer to take as standalone, there's no problem. It's just whatever's convenient for you.
I mean, I don't have any preference as far as how we do it, but I'll open that up to, and I'm probably more inclined just to kind of break them out as they're broken out up on this page, but I will, open that up. I don't know if anyone else has any, opinions, and I could be easily swayed one way or another. So, if anyone wants to weigh in, feel welcome.
I think we should break them into groups. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, me too.
I agree.
Sounds good. Thanks for the feedback. Appreciate it. Does anybody feel differently? I mean, again, I don't want to, seems like we haven't, enough of a consensus. Maybe we'll go that way. Let's take off the first chunk then. So B99, C99, D99, E99, F99, the total shared costs. Any questions or discussion around those? Okay, I don't see any. So then I'll entertain a motion. And Bob, so when our motion for this, is it listing out all of them, or do we say total shared costs? How do we phrase the motion?
I think it'd be sufficient to say move to approve line B99 benefits and go through the whole list through F99 in the amounts presented. Now, at town meeting, they'll have to have a dollar figure next to them. I think for FinCom, this is fine.
Okay. So given that instruction, I'll entertain a motion for the first set.
Motion to accept line B99 benefits, C99 capital, D99 debt service, E99 education vocational, and F99 finance committee as listed.
Thanks, Andrew.
Second.
Thanks, Dan. All right, we'll go to a vote. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed is yes. 8-0. Great. Thank you for that one. So we're now on to the total municipal government one. Any questions or any discussion on that chunk? I'm chuckling because I have a feeling there's not going to be a lot of people jumping up to make this next motion, but I don't want to go there yet if there's questions. All right, none appearing. I'll entertain a motion for the total municipal government line items.
Motion to approve lines G91, G92, H91, H92, I91, I92, J91, J92, K91, K92, K93, K94, K95, L91, L92, M91, M92, as titled before us, each line item and the amounts listed before us.
Second.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Gene. All right, we'll go to the vote. A part of me just wants to be able to kind of to sit on that. That was a great job, Eric. I really appreciated that.
I rehearsed in front of the mirror before the meeting.
Perfect. All right, enough foolery. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Ed, yes, 8-0. I take too much humor in this stuff. Apologies. I should be more serious. Great. So we're on to school department. Is that right, Bob?
That's right, U99.
U99. Okay. Any discussion on U99? Let's see, any hands? I'll entertain a motion for schools.
Motion to approve item 9 U99 schools as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Andrew. Go to the vote. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. That's 8-0 for U99 schools. And then now we're on to the enterprise funds.
Yeah, for this set, I don't think it's unreasonable if you want to bundle W, X, and Y together, but I would ask you to vote Z separately since that's not really under the town's authority.
I'll allow that, Bob, for you to change the rules, right at the end here. We're on a roll, Bob. Okay, sounds good. No, I'm fine with that.
I'll put my rules hat on.
There we go. That's it. That's how we do it. That's perfect. That now it's how can we not allow it, given the hat? Any questions for water, sewer, or storm? None appearing. I'll entertain a motion for water, sewer, and stormwater.
Move to approve W99, X99, and Y99
Thanks, Mary Ann.
as written. As written.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Appreciate it.
Second.
Thanks, Jean. To the vote, Mary Ann,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. 8-0 on the enterprise funds. Any questions on Z99? Go ahead, Marianne. Did you have a question, Marianne? I see your hand up.
I think you're muted, Marianne.
I'm sorry. Can I just confirm what PEG is? That cable access?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm so I knew what I was voting for. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Any other questions on Z99? Cool. I'll entertain a motion for Z99 PEG access.
Move to approve line Z99 PEG access as presented.
Thanks, Gene.
Second,
Thanks, Dan. To the vote, Marianne,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
Dan,
yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. 8-0 for PEG access.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to just take a moment and thank FinCom from, your kind words and deeds last June during the start of the pandemic through the fall in terms of supporting, both town and school staff. It was much appreciated. The pandemic has been easy for no one. We have many professionals who understand their jobs are dangerous. But the one danger that no one ever signed up for was to potentially bring home a life-threatening illness to their family. And that's been something that's been very difficult for many to deal with during the pandemic, is that risk. It's not the risk of getting sick themselves, it's the risk of what they might do to their family members. So, FinCom's approach, your use of free cash, your explicit statements that employees, jobs should be preserved and their wages should be reasonable, were really very much appreciated by a lot of folks, a lot of employees, at a time when, there's just a lot of difficulty for everyone. So I just wanted to thank you again for that.
That's nice of you to say, Bob. I don't think any of us, I don't think there was any other choice. Frankly, I think it was rather logical for us, and so I appreciate you saying that. I don't think it was something that there was a lot of deliberation on our side. I don't think that was something that just seemed like the right thing to do. And as residents of the town, and I won't speak for anyone else besides myself, I am grateful, for every, member of, town staff, school staff, for everything that they've had done and endured over the last, 12 months, and will continue to, until we're through this. So it's been, very rewarding, to be a part of this town and to be a volunteer for this town. So I'm as grateful, on my side.
Well said, Ed.
Thank you. Any other compliments for me? No. Okay. We can move on to the minutes then. we can move on to the minutes then.
No, I don't have a compliment for you. But it feels like the right moment. No, I don't. But it feels like the right moment where we just passed the budget. I've said this on and off over the years, but I was just having a conversation with a colleague who's involved in educational leadership from a different state. And we just got chatting about budget season and how I'm working on FinCom now. And he was asking probing questions about our budgeting process as a community. So I was sharing it, and he just kept being so impressed. And when that's amazing. You mean you don't have fights every single year, and you're not pitting certain groups against certain groups, and the level of collaboration and the level of mutual respect. And I know that our town's budget process, and just this is a compliment to staff on both sides, town and school. It's not quick, it's not easy, but it is thorough, and it is thoughtful, and it's transparent. And I feel like we have that reputation across the state. People know that about Reading. And it is, to your point, Ed, it's a pleasure to be a volunteer in this town, but our budgeting process in particular is really impressive. So I just wanted to thank staff and acknowledge that. I've been hearing compliments out in the world for outside of our community.
Thanks for sharing that, Jean. You know, again, I think that's, something that I think hopefully we don't take for granted. In that, hearing, some of the war stories, for lack of a better term, or difficulties that, other towns or, within the state or in other places, again, I hope we don't take it for granted, because, I don't know what the volunteer staff would look like if it wasn't much different, to be candid. So keep up the good work. Keep getting along. That would be great. And so again, I couldn't, be more, kind of thankful to be in this position to help this process along. Any other comment, questions, or we can move to another stellar meeting meeting notes from Jackie. Again, catching stuff that I thought it was part of the meeting, Jackie, and then I reread it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that was good. Anything from the minutes? Any questions on the minutes from anybody? Not appearing. I don't see any hands. Not appearing. I'll entertain a motion for the minutes for 3:10. Right? Yep.
To approve the minutes from March 10th.
Thanks, Dan.
Second.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll go to the vote. Mary Ann?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Ed, yes. Meeting minutes approved 8-0. Any other business? Any other questions? So Bob, as far as next meetings go, we're not on for next Wednesday, correct? And then when and if is our next thing, TBD, and then otherwise it's town meeting?
Yeah, it really depends. If you're needed in an executive session, we'll certainly give you plenty of notice and maybe some choices on dates. If you're needed to do something for town meeting before town meeting, typically FinCom has met at 7 o'clock the first night of town meeting, but that can be inconvenient because it's also precinct meeting, so we can discuss that. Certainly, FinCom meeting remotely through Zoom is easier to organize. Yep. So, if your actions are needed before town meeting to tinker with any of these articles, we might ask you to meet remotely a week or so before town meeting starts.
Okay. I think that's just good to kind of give everyone a little bit of an idea as far as, what might be needed, from that side. So.
Yeah, and you're always welcome to hold a sort of non-budget process regular meeting, if you will. Typically, FinCom does not do that between now and town meeting, but you're always welcome to if there's things to discuss.
I don't think people want to hear from me. Go ahead, Mary Ann. You had a legitimate thing to say. You're on mute again.
I'm sorry. I should have asked this earlier when Article 19 came up, and I promise this will be quick. On On the select board agenda for next week, under the executive session topic, it talks about, talk about settlement, and then it has this little line about, or the town will buy the property, something like that. So is that something, and I have no idea how anything's going to come up, but just as a process question, would that come up before FinCom and or town meeting the same? For example, if I know in the past, town meeting has bought like some land around the Burbank Ice Arena. Remember a couple of years ago, it was that wetland stuff, and those were very specifically delineated. If somehow there is an outcome that we were going to buy something, or can that fall under the settlement, or is that a whole other thing and it's treated like a land purchase and then we need an appraisal and a fair value? Or if you can't discuss it, that's okay. But I just thought that was interesting in the agenda, and it seemed like I couldn't figure out as just legally if that's considered part of the settlement.
I can discuss some of that. The warrant article, as 19 as written, does not contemplate or allow purchase of property. It is purely
That's what I thought.
settlement. So if for some reason the town is going to buy real estate, it's going to have to be done a different way through town meeting in a different way. And it won't be at this town meeting. It could be, at a future town meeting, it could be at a special town meeting, but it cannot be part of that article.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. No, so again, and thanks again, Bob, for the clarity as far as when we might be needed. Again, maybe it does make sense. We'll probably, it sounds like there's enough things that are in flux that we might have to have something before town meeting, in some way, shape, or form. So I would think, that we may want to just start to, maybe just I'll start to think about a little bit about the dates and times that might work ahead of that.
Yeah, second or third week of April. If it turns out, for instance, it snows a lot, then that'd be one reason you need to amend that budget.
Yep. But I'm hearing now it's all rain, Bob. So
excellent.
Yeah, it's all rain. No, that's changing. It's the luck of the Irish. It's the luck of the Irish. It's all turning to rain.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
It's Chuck Robinson. I just wanted to, before you adjourn, just thank, on behalf of the committee, thank the finance committee for, their participation through our budget process and the support all along the way. We, as there's a lot going on, and the FinCom was very easy to work with this year, and we really appreciate that. So thank you.
No, it's thanks, Chuck. It was again, tons of thoroughness, from the schools as well. And again, I don't doubt that we were easier to work with this year than other years. I don't doubt that at all. I think I don't know what changed year over year, but things makes a lot of sense. I'm hearing it a lot.
You're supposed to, Ed, you're supposed to say it's your leadership.
No, I want to, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's, no, thanks, Chuck. I really appreciate it. And again, I mentioned it at the time, and as we were going over it, even in the FinCom meetings, your point about so much going on is never been truer, as far as, and to be able to kind of have the schools kind of execute all of that, kind of give it everything else that's going on, was inspiring. So, and I'm glad it, kind of all worked out. So, thanks for your kind words. So, definitely appreciated.
Great. Thank you.
So, I don't think we have anything else, and it's, 8:30, about my bedtime. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah. Nice job. All right. Marianne,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. We are adjourned. Happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. You still got a few, you still got a couple hours to celebrate.